Rebel Therapy Podcast, episode 27? Can that
Yeah, I think
possibly be
so.
right? I think it is. Amazing. Almost the number of years since the Blue Jays won the World Series and then didn't again win them. I know.
Knife in the heart
Blah.
for a lot of people.
Boo, boo, boo. I know. So that's what we want to talk about today. The benefits of losing, ironically, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, it can feel so devastating in the moment, and you're like, what possible good could come of this? Or you just focus on the feeling that you missed out on of winning and succeeding and feeling awesome. And I do think it takes time after losing to be like, okay, what did I gain from that? And I think it is character building. As annoying as that is to say, like, I often find that annoying when people are like, oh, well, it's a character building experience, but I'd still rather win. But the fact is that, like, losing and failing and trying and not succeeding actually, like, it's beneficial.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. When you say character building, like, yes, that's echoes of so many adults in my childhood. I get it, absolutely. I would actually say more so, what is your objective as a human being? I think about it in the context of parenting, for example. And I used to say this to people all the time. It's like, I don't need to teach my child. I mean, he's not really a kid in the same way, but I didn't need to teach him to be a good kid. He was already a good kid. But when I was trying to help him or support him or make decisions as a parent, it was more like, how can I help him develop the skills he needs to be a successful adult? And I think from that perspective, the objective is like sustainable win, not instantaneous win. And to your point, like a short-term win feels amazing. Everybody loves that. But I'm not sure that that is the point. Winning is easy, but we are never going to only win. It doesn't matter how competent, brilliant, talented, lucky you are, at some point you're going to fail. And so to me, as a parent, as a therapist, the idea is when you fail, it's not the failing that's problematic. It's what happens once you fail. You take a minute, feel the failure, feel the sadness, feel the grief, feel the anger, whatever you're feeling, right? But then what's next? How do you get back on your feet and keep going? And to me, learning that process is more the point. Winning is easy, but what do I do when I fail? What happens next?
Yeah, and I think part of that process, if I were to use the Jays as an example, and maybe I shouldn't because
No, you
I
should.
I
You
don't
should.
know very much about baseball, so I might
It doesn't matter.
expose my ignorance. But, like, the idea, like, yes, in that moment, it's like that devastation, and you're like, oh, it all amounted to nothing. Like, that's the kind of feeling, and I don't think that's true. And then it's like you think back over the season, right? And it's like there's all these tiny moments of winning and losing and struggling and succeeding and failing and trying. You know what I mean? There's so much in all of the moment to moment
Yep.
experience of the entire season. And it's like, that's the good stuff of it. Like, all of the stuff that it took for you to get to that place. And it's like, that is not erased because you didn't win in that moment, you know?
Yes. But yes, and I actually think that despite your intermediate level of baseball, based on what you've told me, anyway, I think the Jays this particular season is a perfect example because you can't tell me that they were the lesser team. They weren't, right? It could have gone either way. I would argue, as somebody who watched every one of the games, especially that last game, it was a grind and it could have gone either way. They lost because luck wasn't with them. It's not because they weren't as skilled. If we take it back to individual lives, they weren't as good or they weren't as talented or whatever else, which is true for most of us when we fail. It's not that we're not good. It's just that someone else was better or luck wasn't with us. We have control over the process, but not the outcome, and the outcome didn't go the way we wanted. To me, that is such an important lesson to learn. Sometimes you can give your all and actually be the better team, but if luck is not with you, you will not have the outcome that you hope for. What do you do when you're faced with the failure of not getting the outcome you've planned for? How do you manage a situation that feels very personal, but it's actually not about you? I think the skill set required to feel those feelings and then figure out a way forward to get back on your feet is so important. So to me, that's the objective. The
Yes.
winning is not the
Yeah.
objective. It's the like moving on is kind of the objective, right?
Yeah, and also not beating yourself up about it. I used to play a lot of team sports and I was really hard on myself. If I had a bad game and we lost, or even if we won and I had a bad game, I would be hard on
Even
myself.
worse.
the worst scenario of missing the free throw at the end and then you lose by 1 point that you could have tied. I had those moments that felt devastating at the time.
Mhm.
So being able to rally back from that and be like, okay, but I'm going to
Yes,
show up to practice on Monday and be like, that was what it was. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me or I'm a bad person or I suck
that's the one.
inherently, right? There's so many circumstances that go into a game, whether you win or lose, that are out of your control. You can only do what you can do in the
Yeah,
dynamics of the team you're in the circumstances. And then, like you said, you don't have control over the outcome. So what do you do when the outcome is not what you want? How do you pick up the pieces of that and put it
that's
back to
right.
something where you're like, okay, I learned from that. I gained something from that experience, even though it was painful. And then I'm going to carry that forward into the next experience.
100%. And then I think to extrapolate slightly beyond that, if you think about sort of, how do I want to say this? When I talk to clients of mine, we'll talk about certain circumstances and they'll say like, is this right or is this wrong? And I'll say, I sort of reject your premise. To me, it's more like, what is your objective in any interaction, any relational situation, any interaction with another human? What is your objective? What is the purpose here? For me, if I'm being honest, the objective is to live the richest, most colorful, most impactful life that I can. And that includes feeling sad, and that includes losing, and that includes all of the feelings around grief and disappointment. And I'm not suggesting it's enjoyable or easy, it's not, but I do think that if richness is your objective, and I would argue that, if you're part of a team sport and you're part of a team, it is going to be a rich experience, right? It's not just the winning, like aim for winning, but it's about how you handle the losses. I think that kind of balances that out. So creates like a full palette of color, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And those things are actually inherent to like trying and wanting and striving, is that sometimes you're going
Yes.
to feel sad and disappointed and devastated and all of these things, right? But like you said, if the goal is to actually live a life of want and trying and pursuing and being open to the full experience of that, like the entire process from, yeah, the first moment
Yeah,
to the end.
if our objective is to live a rich life, whatever that means, a colorful life, then it's going to include the bad with the good. And I do think that that's what it is to be human. It's gotten very philosophical all of a sudden when we're really just talking about a baseball game.
No, I think
Well
sports.
situated for next year, though. Like
There
this
you
is my hot
go.
take. Whatever day it is, November 3rd, 2025. I feel like the Blue Jays are going to come back even stronger in the
Yeah.
2026
No,
year. But
I think
yeah,
sports is a great metaphor for life, honestly. And we talked
yeah,
about the marathon a couple weeks ago. There's a lot of metaphor and analogy you can take from sports. And I think that's why people find it such a rich experience to ride that
wait.
season with a team.
Yeah. And to push it just a tiny bit further, I remember talking to my kid the next day. He's like, so they lost. Are you sad? I'm like, oh, I'm over it. But I was super into it. And I've been a fan for years. I'm not just a bandwagon fan. I'm a real fan, even when they're not doing well. I was up, I was down, I was laughing, I was crying, whatever. And then the next day, I'm like, okay, what's next? My point is that the richest, most impactful experiences leave their mark on you. But if you
Yeah.
honor the experience in the moment, it's part of your experience and then you move on. You just move on and you always move on. No matter how intense an experience is, the reality is we will eventually, sooner or later, sooner rather than later, typically, right? Move on. And then,
Something else becomes more relevant. You come back
yeah,
into a different cycle of wanting or trying.
yes. And the most intense emotions are like waves. They have a peak, they have a crest, and then they recede. So part of the work that we do as therapists is help people experience, remind them, support them through the experience of riding the wave. And then you start to trust that, yeah, I feel really impacted in this moment. Take a beat, and now I'm fine again. Yeah.
It's through allowing yourself to feel it fully that allows it
Yeah.
to end.
And then there's space for something new.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
A fertile void or whatever they call it in Gestalt.
That's right. Yes, when nothing's happening, there's endless opportunity,
Yeah.
endless possibility. Yeah.
Keyword being fertile, right? It's like you've got all the
Yes,
nutrients in the soil and the water that something can happen from, but nothing's happening yet.
that's right. And we don't know what the outcome's going to be. We just know that something's going to grow, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's leave it there. If people love this and if you love the Blue Jays like I do, even if you don't, like and subscribe. It helps us.
Yeah. for sure. Help us succeed.
Exactly. Help us
Okay.
win.